Okay, we will be looking at the domain and range of continuous functions today. So the previous assignment, we looked at discrete functions, and we listed all of the values for x and y for the domain and range. When we're looking at a continuous function, continuous means that it's a line or it's connected. So we're going to be talking about a range rather than listing every single value. So let's talk about interval notation. This is the second time we're seeing this year. We did this in Unit 1 when we were doing inequalities. So we're also going to use interval notation to state the domain and range of continuous functions. So just to refresh your memory, a parentheses means not included, and we use it for when we see an open circle in the graph. A bracket means included, and we use it for a closed circle on the graph. So the domain is the x values, so we're looking left to right, and the range is top to bottom. Those are the y values. When you list inside the brackets or the parentheses, you're going to make sure you list it least to greatest. And if you ever use these infinities, which we will not see in today's assignment specifically, but when we use infinities, we always use the parentheses. So let's review just this section here on a number line. So we're going to write this number line graph in interval notation. So we see an open circle. That tells us that we're going to be using parentheses for this interval. So 1 and 4, with 1 and 4 not being included. So it's all numbers between 1 and 4, but not including 1 and 4. B has a closed circle on one side and an open circle on one side. So we'll have a bracket, a bracket near the 1 and a parentheses near the 4. For C, again, we have the points on 1 and 4, but we will have an open circle on the left, which is a parentheses, and a bracket on the right for the closed circle. And for D, it's again 1 and 4 with brackets on both sides for those closed circles. Okay, so you're going to remember these acronyms, DIX and ROY. So the domain is the input and the x values, and the range is the output and the y values. For the domain, you're going to scan your pencil. So lay your pencil flat on your paper and scan it from left to right. And identify the x values in which you are touching the graph. So I'm going to lay my pencil down vertical, so the pencil's pointing up and down, and I'm going to scan it from the left to the right and record each time the pencil touches the graph and record that x value. For the range, I'm going to turn my pencil horizontally on my paper and scan it bottom to top. And identify the y values where it touches the graph. So basically, you're finding the outer edges of these graphs. So we're going to state the domain and range and decide whether this is a function or not. So number 1, the leftmost part of this graph, and we're looking at the domain, is right here. And the farthest right is here. And the very top of the graph is here, and the very bottom is here. Lowest point, highest point. It's not necessarily where the dot is. It's the highest point and the lowest point and the point farthest left and right. So now we decide, I'm going to draw back in this open circle here so I remember that it's open. Now I'm going to decide how to list this with parentheses or brackets. For the domain, I'm at -2 and 5. So -2 and 5. And I have a closed circle on the left side. So I'm going to use a bracket there. And an open circle on the right. So that's a parentheses. Make sure I'm using the right colors. Yes. Okay. Now, as far as the top to the bottom goes, my lowest point is at -2 and my highest point is at +1. So -2 and 1. My lowest point has a parentheses. And if there's no specific circle there, you're going to consider this to be a closed circle because it's part of the line. There's no hole there. So that will be a bracket. Is this a function? Well, this would pass the vertical line test. I could not draw a vertical line anywhere and have it touch more than once. So yes, this is a function. Okay, number 2, we have a circle. So let's find the domain. On the left, we have -3, and on the right, we have +3. And there are no holes in this graph, so we'll use brackets for both sides. For the range, the bottom is at -3, and the top is at +3. Again, there are no holes in the graph, so we're using brackets. This will not pass the vertical line test because if I draw a vertical line, it's going to cross twice. So no, it is not a function. Okay, let's look at number 3. The domain, the farthest left we can go is here. This is at -4. And the farthest right is here at 5. These are closed circles, so we use brackets. The lowest point of the graph is here. This is -3. And the highest point is here at +5. So -3 and 5. And again, these are brackets. This is a function. It would pass the vertical line test. Number 4, the domain. So the farthest left is this part here. This would be at -3, and the farthest right would be at +2. Now I have open circles for both of these. So I'm going to use parentheses. For the range, the lowest point of the graph is here at -5, and the highest point is here at +4. Now +4 has a hole in the graph, so I use a parentheses, and -5 does not have a hole, so that's a bracket. This is also a function. It would pass the vertical line test. Last 2 examples. For the domain, I have -1 and +5. And these would both be brackets. There are no open circles there. The range would be -3 to +3 with brackets. This is not a function. A vertical line would pass this graph twice. And last example, the domain is -1 and 5 with a bracket with the -1 and a parentheses with the 5. The range, here is my lowest point, -3, and my highest point is +3. I will have a bracket at the bottom and a parentheses at the highest point. This is a function. There are no places in this graph where you could pass twice with a vertical line. That's what you'll be determining in today's practice.